Istanbul, 1558. The Ottoman Empire was shaken to its core. Hurrem Sultan, the most powerful woman behind the walls of Topkapi Palace, had died suddenly. No illness, no symptoms, no warning. One day she stood beside the Sultan in full strength. The next she was gone. Rumors began to spread like wildfire. She had been poisoned. But who would dare poison the beloved wife of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent? Was it a jealous rival, a political enemy, or someone even closer? Her death was not just a loss. It was the beginning of one of history's most chilling royal mysteries. Hürrem, born as Alexandra Lasowska, later known as Roxolana, began her life far from the opulence of the Ottoman court. Originating from Ruthenia, present-day Ukraine, she was kidnapped during a Tatar raid, torn from her home, and sold into slavery. Her fate, like countless other girls of the time, seemed sealed: servitude, silence, and eventual disappearance into the depths of the Sultan's harem. But Hürrem was no ordinary captive. Taken to the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, she entered the imperial harem, a secluded world filled with beauty, ambition, and ruthless rivalry. It was a place where hundreds of concubines competed for the Sultan's attention, but Hürrem stood out immediately. With her striking red hair, sharp wit, and magnetic charm, she captivated Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent like no other woman had. Unlike other concubines, who were expected to remain silent and submissive, Hürrem broke every rule. She refused to be forgotten. Using her intelligence and charisma, she formed a deep emotional bond with the Sultan. He didn't just desire her, he began to listen to her. In a bold move that shocked the entire empire, Suleiman freed Hürrem from slavery and married her, making her his legal wife, the first and only sultan in Ottoman history to do so. This act shattered centuries of tradition. Hürrem became more than a concubine. She became Hasiki Sultan, a title created just for her. It gave her political influence, a voice in state matters, and unprecedented access to the Sultan's inner circle. She bore him multiple sons, each a potential heir to the throne, further strengthening her position in court. But with power came danger. The Ottoman harem was no place for the weak. Behind the silken curtains and golden walls were deadly games of ambition, jealousy, and betrayal. Hürrem navigated these treacherous waters like a master strategist. She eliminated rivals, forged political alliances, and even corresponded with foreign leaders. European ambassadors wrote of her intelligence and influence, often calling her the true power behind the throne. She also championed charitable works, founding mosques, schools, hospitals, and public kitchens. These acts served not only as genuine contributions to society, but also as political tools to enhance her image among the people. In time, she became beloved by many and feared by many more. Pushpin, she didn't just survive the empire, she bent it to her will. Hurrem Sultan's transformation from a kidnapped girl to the most powerful woman in the Ottoman Empire is one of the most extraordinary tales in history. Her rise was not accidental. It was deliberate, brilliant, and unrelenting. Yet with great power comes a dangerous price. Her influence created many enemies, some within the palace, some even within her own family. And years later, when she died under mysterious circumstances, many wondered, had she finally lost one political battle too many? Or had the empire turned on the very woman who had helped shape its destiny? The answer lies buried in the shadows of Topkapi Palace and in the silence that followed her death. With the Sultan's ear and heart firmly in her grasp, Hurrem Sultan became more than just a royal consort. She became one of the most powerful and feared figures in the Ottoman court. But power, in the world of Topkapi, came with a heavy cost. For every favor she gained from Suleiman, a new enemy was born in silence. Hurrem's influence on the Sultan's decisions reached far beyond domestic affairs. Whispers in the court claimed she had a hand in matters of war, diplomacy, and most infamously, executions. The most notorious of these was the fall of Ibrahim Pasha, the Grand Vizier and once the closest friend of Sultan Suleiman. Ibrahim was not only powerful, but confident to the point of arrogance. He referred to himself as Sultan's double, a title that made many uneasy, perhaps none more than Hurrem. Over time, she convinced Suleiman that Ibrahim had grown too ambitious, too independent. In 1536, Ibrahim was strangled in his sleep by palace guards. No trial, no explanation, just silence, and Hürrem's quiet smile behind her veil. But even that paled in comparison to her alleged role in the death of Prince Mustafa, the Sultan's eldest and most beloved son, born from another concubine, Mahidevran. Mustafa was strong, charismatic, and immensely popular with the army. Many believed he was destined to be the next sultan, and therein lay the threat. Hürrem's own sons, especially Selim, were weaker and lacked Mustafa's public support. If Mustafa took the throne, Hürrem's influence would end, and worse, her sons might be executed, as was customary to avoid civil war. So the whispers say she acted, using her political network and allies in the palace. Hürrem and her son-in-law Rustam Pasha allegedly fed Suleiman forged letters, suggesting that Mustafa was plotting a coup. The Sultan, already aging and paranoid, believed them. In 1553, during a campaign in Persia, Suleiman summoned Mustafa to his tent. What the prince thought was a private audience turned into an execution. He was strangled with a silk cord, the traditional method reserved for royalty. The empire mourned. The army wept. Many saw this as the darkest stain on Suleiman's reign, a tragedy forged in the shadows of deceit. At the heart of it all stood Hürrem. Though never proven, her hand was suspected in both deaths. To some, she was a mother protecting her children. To others, she was a puppet master, orchestrating the destruction of anyone who stood in her family's way. The court gave her a name, the Witch of the Harem. Loved by the Sultan, loathed by his court, revered by the poor for her charitable works, reviled by the elite for her cunning. Hurrem Sultan lived at the center of a storm she helped create. A queen in everything but title, shaping the fate of an empire with nothing more than words, glances, and veiled threats. Her presence loomed over every decision, every promotion, every downfall. Even those who dared not speak against her feared what might happen if they did. Because in Topkapi Palace, the deadliest weapon was not a sword, it was a whisper carried by a woman in silk. And Hürrem had mastered the art of turning whispers into executions. In 1558, the corridors of Topkapi Palace fell eerily silent. Hurrem Sultan, once the most powerful woman in the Ottoman Empire, had suddenly grown weak, and within days, she was dead. No official explanation, no public mourning ceremony of grandeur, just the quiet burial of a woman whose shadow had loomed over the empire for decades. Some chroniclers would later claim she died of natural causes, perhaps from an unknown illness. But this explanation raised more questions than it answered. Hürrem had shown no signs of decline. She was still active in court affairs and remained a central figure in Suleiman's private and political life. And yet, her end came swiftly, too swiftly. Crucially, no detailed medical record was ever documented, no symptoms described, no physician's notes, nothing but silence and shadows. That silence left room for something else to grow: rumors. Whispers spread that Hürrem had been poisoned by arsenic, the most infamous and undetectable poison of the era. Tasteless, odorless, and deadly, arsenic was the silent executioner of royal courts across Europe and Asia. In many ways, it was the perfect weapon, especially when the victim held more power than most kings. But if Hürrem was murdered, the question became dangerously complex. Who would dare kill the Sultan's wife? There were three likely suspects, each with a motive, each with access, and each with a dark enough ambition to strike. 1. Miraima Sultan, her own daughter. Miraima was Hürrem's only daughter and closest confidant for many years. Together, they orchestrated political marriages, forged alliances, and advised Sultan Suleiman. But power is a delicate thing, even between mother and daughter. As Hürrem's influence began to wane with age, Miraima's ambitions grew. She wanted more than just to be a royal daughter. She wanted to shape the empire herself. Some historians speculate that the two began to clash over court strategies, family decisions, and even the succession of the throne. Could Miraima have believed that removing her mother would clear the way for her own rise? In the Byzantine world of Ottoman politics, blood ties were no protection from betrayal. 2. Selim, her son and the future sultan. Selim, later known as Selim II, was never the strongest or wisest of Hürrem's sons. He was known more for his indulgences in wine and pleasure than for leadership. Hurrem had worked tirelessly to position him as the heir to the throne, eliminating rivals like Prince Mustafa. But what happens when a son believes his mother's guidance has become control? As Selim neared the edge of power, it's possible he saw Hurrem as more of a liability than an asset. A final political move, to sever the cord, could have allowed him to ascend without her shadow. If so, the ultimate betrayal may have come not from an enemy, but from the very child she had sacrificed everything to protect. 3. Kozum, the rising concubine. Though younger and not yet fully powerful, Kozum was rising through the ranks of the harem, a beautiful and intelligent woman gaining the attention of influential men in the court. Hurrem's dominance had blocked the ambitions of many women like her. Removing Hurrem would create a power vacuum, and Kozum was not one to wait for opportunity. She was known for creating it. Could she have poisoned the queen behind the scenes? Or perhaps conspired with others to deliver the fatal dose? No one was ever blamed. No evidence surfaced. Hurrem was buried in a lavish mausoleum near Suleiman, but her death left more questions than answers. She died without a trace, but the scent of conspiracy still clings to the stone walls of Topkapi. Even centuries later, historians still debate whether her end was natural or a final, silent strike in the most dangerous chess game of the Ottoman court. After Hurrem Sultan's mysterious death, the fragile balance of the Ottoman court collapsed into chaos. Without her sharp mind and strategic influence to guide him, her son Selim too ascended the throne, ushering in an era many historians consider the beginning of the empire's slow decline. Selim, remembered infamously as Selim the Drunkard, lacked the vision, discipline, and strength of his father. He indulged in wine, left the affairs of state to his viziers, and allowed the empire's enemies to gain ground. What Hurrem had fought so ruthlessly to build was now in danger of crumbling. The people of the time cursed her name, blaming her for the execution of Prince Mustafa, the fall of great leaders like Ibrahim Pasha, and for paving the way for an unfit ruler. She was branded a manipulative witch, a woman who twisted the Sultan's heart and destroyed the rightful future of the empire. But time changes judgment. Today, many modern scholars have begun to reevaluate Hurrem Sultan's legacy. Rather than a villain, she is seen as a trailblazer, the first woman in Ottoman history to seize real political power and reshape the imperial court from within. She defied centuries of tradition, broke through a male-dominated world, and left a mark so deep that the empire would never be the same again. Hurrem's life was filled with ambition, brilliance, and controversy. But whether saint or schemer, queen or villain, her story still captivates, centuries later. Because hers was not just a tale of power, it was a tale of survival, in a world where a woman's whisper could change the fate of an empire. Hurrem Sultan may have died, but her legacy, along with the curse, whispers, and fear she inspired, continued to haunt the Ottoman Empire for generations. Long after her body was laid to rest in her marble tomb beside Sultan Suleiman, her name still stirred unease within the palace walls. To some, she was a symbol of ambition gone too far. To others, she was the first woman who dared to wield power, not from behind a man, but beside him. And if you ask, who poisoned her, the answer remains buried in the silence of Topkapi Palace. It could have been a jealous concubine, eager to replace her, a power-hungry prince, desperate to break free from her control. Or perhaps it was the empire itself, the very system she bent to her will, finally striking back. Hurrem ruled not with armies or swords, but with whispers, secrets, and a gaze that could decide life or death. She changed the course of history, then vanished into it. But legends like hers don't truly die. They linger in shadows, in stone, and in the uneasy dreams of those who came after her. Because power may fade, but fear leaves a stain that no time can wash away.